Hello friends, good day to all. Today we are going to learn about the menstrual cycle, its phases, and what is the difference between the ovarian and the endometrial cycle, and all the functional changes that are occurring in those specific cycles, the hormonal changes and the basal temperature changes. Under the hormonal, the pituitary hormonal changes and the ovarian hormonal changes. So with this, let us proceed. My dear friends, we all know that there are some rhythmic monthly cycles that are occurring in the female reproductive system, to be specific in the ovary and the endometrium of the female, and these are all categorized under one common heading, that is the female monthly sexual cycles. And when we deal specifically with the ovary, we name it as ovarian cycle, and when we deal with the specific with the uterine endometrium, we call it as uterine cycle or endometrial cycle. And to add here one point, that most of the authors consider this uterine endometrial cycle as the menstrual cycle, but some also consider this female monthly sexual cycle as a menstrual cycle. Okay, so when we come to the duration, what is the duration of the menstrual cycle? So in order to understand the duration and its variation, we must know one thing, that menstrual cycle duration is calculated as from the first day of menstrual bleeding that is occurring in the females, from the first day of menstrual bleeding up to the first day of next menstrual bleeding. So this is the from the first day of the menstrual bleeding till the first day of the next menstrual bleeding. When we calculate the days, number of days, that is the duration of the menstrual cycle in that specific woman. So what is the usual period? Usually it is 28 days. Okay, usually it is 28 days, but it changes there are variations, changes from female to female, as well as it can change within the same female. It is not same always, you must remember these points, they are very important, can be asked in the MCQs. Okay, so duration we have learned, and now the question arises, what is that variation, how much variation, what is the range of the variation? So the range is nearly 21 to 25 days. Okay, so that variation is under this range only. So, and next, the most important questions that are being asked nowadays is that they asked, what is a case during the lactation and pregnancy? So does the cycle occurs continuously even if the female is in the stage of pregnancy and the lactation? So your answer must be no, it doesn't occur. It doesn't occur during pregnancy and lactation. So some examiners go further one step and ask, what is the reason behind? So your answer must be the hormonal influence. Okay, so due to the hormonal influences, these during the stage of pregnancy and lactation, these menstrual cycle is paused, stopped, ceased. Okay, so this must be your answer. To understand what are in depth about the hormonal influence, you have to watch all the parts in detail, okay, of this menstrual cycle. So next questions usually asked are, what are all the factors that are affecting the duration? So there are emotional factors, the hormonal factors, okay, psychological factors, nutritional factors, and at the same time environmental factors, and even at the near to menopause, Menopause, what is the meaning of menopause? Menopause, it demarcates the loss of fertility, near the end of the fertility, not loss, it demarcates the end of the fertile period. So in order to understand in depth, you have to watch my another part of this video, that is the menstrual bleeding, the mechanism. Okay, so let us move to our next slide. So in this slide, we are going to learn what are all the different phases, how they are categorized in the ovarian cycle and in the endometrial cycle, and we will be dealing in detail about the timeline of this. So menstrual cycle can be, as in previous video we have learned very detailed about the ovarian cycle in a nutshell, so you can watch that also. So in that we have understood with the diagram that first there is a follicular phase. It is divided into follicular phase, and last is the luteal phase. Okay, so okay, you have understood now. So these phases are separated by one phase, that is a ovulation. This is dividing these two phases. Ovulation is only occurring on one day. It is not a phase but just a process. 14th day, only 14th day it is occurring, so ovulation to be specific. Okay, and follicular and the luteal phases are longer phases, because from starting to up to the 14th day it is occurring, and this rest all the 28 days, so remaining 14 days. So all these comes under the luteal phase. We have discussed all the how the changes are occurring in that video also, you can watch that. And these are the classification under the ovarian cycle. When we study ovarian cycle, we classify like this. But when we study the endometrial cycle, my dear friends, please focus here. When we study the endometrial cycle, then we divide these into follicular phase, can be divided into menstrual phase and the proliferative phase. Okay, and this ovulation is common, and also this luteal phase is common. So here we categorize the follicular phase into two phases, that is specifically we are dealing with the menstrual phase and the proliferative phase. And what is the duration of the menstrual phase? My dear friends, menstrual phase is nearly 3 to 5 days. Within this follicular phase only, you must not confuse here. And whenever we are dealing with ovarian cycle, you must not write menstrual phase as different, because menstrual phase is a part of the follicular phase only. We specifically define menstrual phase when we are dealing with the endometrial cycle, and that is the reason why the endometrial cycle is also known as a menstrual cycle. Okay na? So remaining up to 14 days all come under the proliferative, but the 14th day is the day of ovulation, and remaining 14 days up to 28 days. Okay, remaining 14 days, no, up to remaining up to 28 means there are 14 days remain, so that comes under the luteal. Okay, now let us write the timeline, okay, so that you can understand in depth as well. So let us write first 14 days, next 1 day, and then next 14 days. And first 14 days we consider as follicular, that is, this is a revision as well, you can consider it as revision. Follicular phase, this is the ovulation, 14th day. Okay, and these remaining 14 days come under the luteal phase. Okay, and again this cycle is repeating, okay, and and we have learned that follicular phase can be distinguished into menstrual phase and the proliferative phases, and these 14 days can be divided into 3 to 5 and remaining all. Okay, so all these is the timeline. And one special important thing I want to highlight is that the menstrual phase is the only phase that can be identified externally, because all these changes we cannot see externally now. Only menstrual bleeding is that we can see from outside, because it comes to menstrual bleeding occurs to outside, no. So that is the reason why all these cycles are identified by this phase only externally. That is important question. Okay, so let us move forward.